Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. Love From Lizi recently released a special edition Christmas kit, and it's just beautiful. I love all of the non-traditional Christmas colors included in this kit, lots of gold, shine, and sparkle. This kit is available without a subscription, but quantities are limited, so if you are interested, I would suggest not waiting. I have provided a link in the description box below if you would like to purchase this kit. So let's go ahead and get started with card number 1. I'm using some of the pattern paper that has snowflakes all over the background in this beautiful glitter, matted that using the teal cardstock that's included in the kit. And then I pulled out one of the chipboard picture frames. It's covered in this beautiful gold mirror finish. I'm adding one of the pre-painted wooden ornaments. I'm going to have it hanging right in the middle of that picture frame. And I just use a piece of ribbon that's from a previous Love From Lizi kit, this dark teal color. I just looped it through the hole in the ornament, and now I'm just going to put some score tape around the back side of this frame. So the piece of paper that's going to be behind the ornament is just some white pearlescent paper. That way it really stands out. If I put it against the snowflake paper, it might have looked a little lost on that busier paper. So I'll go ahead and add some adhesive to the back side. And since I will be adhering this on that glitter pattern paper, I like to use a little bit of liquid adhesive as well, just to make sure that it's going to stay in place. I'm also adding a couple of glue dots to the back side of the ornament so it doesn't swing about on the card. And then I decided I'm going to wrap some more of this ribbon around the bottom of the card. So I just wrapped it twice, and then I'll adhere it with some score tape on the ends just to make sure it doesn't come off. And I debated about adding a little bow, but changed my mind. I thought it might be just a little too busy. So go ahead and put some adhesive on the back side, and I'll attach that card front onto a card base. And then I did put just a small piece of score tape underneath the front of the ribbon, just because I felt like it was a little loose on the front of the card. So that way it's not going to get snagged on anything. And then next I pulled out one of these pre-tied gold glitter bows. I'm just going to add a few glue dots to the back, and then also a little bit of liquid adhesive just to make sure it stays in place on my card. And I did place one of my acrylic blocks on top and let that sit for a few minutes just to make sure the glue had dried. And then I stamped a sentiment. This is using a reverse confetti stamp set. Cut it out on a small little sentiment banner. And then a little finishing touch. I'm just going to add a small banner in that upper left-hand corner of the card. And there is my finished card, and this is card number 1. Now moving on to card number 2. And for this card, I'm going to use a card sketch from MFT. This is number 353. For the background paper, I'm using a busier pattern paper. So it has all of these beautiful ornaments on it. And I'm going to mat it using some of the purple pearlescent paper. I just rounded those top 2 corners. Then I have some of this lovely gold foil star paper, and I layered that using a gold scalloped circle die cut. I'm just trying to decide which peel off color I would like to use. Went with the gold glitter, and I'm just putting 2 of them on the lower portion of the card using 2 different widths. And I'll just trim off the ends. Sometimes I'll wrap the little bit extra of the peel off around the card, but the gold glitter peel offs are just a little bit thicker, so it will leave just that slight bump from where that wrapped portion is on the bottom of the card, and I decided it'll be fine if I just trim it off at the edge. So go ahead and add my card front onto a card base. And for this card, I did decide to have that 1/8 of an inch of the card base showing. I thought just that little bit of white added a nice contrast to the card. Now the kit does not include a stamp set. There is one sentiment die. So I am including several different Christmas stamp sets. This Deck the Hall sentiment is a Lawn Fawn stamp set. I just stamp that on some white cardstock. Didn't get a great stamp the first time, so that's why I did it twice. Trim that out, cut a small fishtail on the end, and then layered it with some more of the purple pearlescent paper. Then I'm just adding a small piece of cardstock on the left-hand side where it hangs off of the edge from that circle die cut. Just keep it nice and even on the card. Then just a finishing touch, I'm adding 2 of the gold glitter buttons in that upper left-hand corner. And I'll just adhere those to the card using some large glue dots. And I don't always show this one step, but I do like to add a small piece of the pattern paper on the inside of the card, and it's just for a little extra detail. So there is my finished card, and that's card number 2. So next up is card number 3. The sketch is by OWH. It's number 123. And this has always been one of my favorite sketches. I pulled it out in a recent video, and now I seem to want to use it all the time again. The background paper has sort of a garland look, lots of gold glitter all over it, and then I just use a small piece of this yellow, sort of a mustard yellow cardstock for that background rectangle piece. And then for the banner on the left-hand side, I used some more of the purple pearlescent paper. I felt like if I added any other pattern papers, it was just a little too busy, so I just went with some solid cardstock. Of course, the pearlescent paper always adds a beautiful touch. And now just for the bottom of the card, I'm using a few different peel-offs. These are all the teal mirror color. 2 of them are the pinstripe, and then the one in the center is the bubble design, but it's the piece that goes in between the actual bubble peel-offs. Has a really pretty diamond look to it, kind of like a diamond chain. So go ahead and adhere that yellow piece of paper to the background. Use some liquid adhesive since I am adhering it onto the glitter pattern paper. And I'm layering all of these pieces just using some navy cardstock that I have in my craft room. On the upper portion of this purple banner, I'm using just a few layers of this blue cardstock. Once again, just trying to keep all of the pieces level, because if I didn't put that cardstock underneath and I adhered it to the card, there'd kind of be a little bit of an indentation because it would go down on that edge where that yellow paper and the matted layer would be. And I don't really like that look. So this is something you're going to see me do quite a bit, and using just some of those small scraps of cardstock is perfect for it. So now I'm going to add my sentiment, and I decided I'll do some heat embossing. So this is another sentiment by Lawn Fawn. Stamped it in my Mini Misty just to make sure I had a good solid impression. I first pre-treated the paper using some anti-static powder and then used Versamark ink. And the embossing powder is this beautiful dark blue color. This is the warm navy embossing powder from Love From Lizi. So go ahead and get that heat set, and it does have a beautiful shine to it. And I'll add it to the blue cardstock layer. I always use a little extra adhesive whenever I do heat embossing, simply because it warps the paper slightly. And then I'll use one of the gold Snowflake die cuts that's included in the kit, and I'll just put it right next to the sentiment. And I'm just putting a little bit of adhesive just where that snowflake is touching the white cardstock. And there is like a little star that goes in the center of the snowflake that does come apart, and I decided to pop it back in. So I just use a little bit of liquid adhesive, and then just a finishing touch, I added just 3 small drops of some Nuvo glitter drops. And that is the Gold Coast color. So there is my finished card. So now moving on to card number 4. The background paper is this beautiful pattern paper with all of these peacock feathers. Love the little navy blue heart. So very non-traditional Christmas paper, but I think that's what I really love about this kit. Before I adhere that pattern paper onto this blue pearlescent layer, I'm adding just a couple of the gold glitter peel-offs just to the lower portion of the card. I'm using 2 different sizes, again just snipping them at the edge. Don't want that extra little bump underneath that lower portion of the card. So I'll go ahead and add it to that matted layer. For this card, I do have a 1/4 of an inch matted layer around there since I really wanted to show off more of that blue pearlescent paper. And then I have this stitched tag with all of these little diagonal stripes on there. It has the hole in the center. Cut out a stitched circle die cut in the teal cardstock to cover up that hole. And then just to make sure it stays in place, I put a few pieces of score tape on the back. And then I'm just adding some twine. This is a roll of twine I've had in my craft room for many years, sort of a beige cream color, and it has a gold thread woven throughout it, so it's really pretty. I was trying to decide if I wanted to add one of the clothespins. I was going to do like a little bow, but I didn't like the look, so I keep kind of fussing with it, and I end up just going to the traditional way I usually add twine to the top of a tag. So I'm using another Lawn Fawn Christmas sentiment. This is very simple. It's Merry Christmas. Just stamp that in some dark blue ink. Just have it on some white cardstock, and then I'll cut some fishtails on both ends of the sentiment. And I do have it a little too wide at first. So I'm laying it on the card and realizing it's going to probably go over the edge once I add a matted layer. So I do go and trim it just a little bit shorter since I did have some extra room on both ends of the words there. So I'll use some more of the blue pearlescent cardstock. And I don't usually measure when I add my sentiment strips onto matted cardstock. I really just eyeball it. It's usually about an extra 1/8 of an inch though. Then I decided I'm going to pop up this whole tag. I'll add a small piece of score tape behind the twine just to make sure it doesn't come loose on the card. And then I'll cover that whole back using some foam dimensional tape. Make sure to get good coverage so one side doesn't sag at all. And then I'll just put 2 small pieces of the foam tape on the ends of this sentiment strip. And then I can adhere all of that to the card front. Then I pulled out the sheet of the gold glitter snowflake stickers. And there are little cut out parts of the snowflake, but they don't peel off real easily when you pull the sticker off of the backing. So I'm just using my little piercing tool and trying to poke those extra little pieces out. That way you can get the full effect of that beautiful snowflake. So I thought about just using 1 snowflake in the center of that circle die cut, but it was on the smaller side. So I decided to use 3 of them. I love how beautiful and shiny these are. And then just one final finishing touch, I'm using some of Nuvo's Crystal Drops. This is the mustard gold color. I did a few in the upper corner and the lower corner. There is my finished card, and that's card number 4. So now moving on to card number 5. I'm using this beautiful pattern paper in this deep purple color, and the design on the background sort of looks like a gold glitter, but it's smooth. There's no glitter on this pattern paper. I'm going to layer all of that using some of the gold mirror cardstock, and then I'll use another one of the photo frames since there's 2 included in the kit. Adding some of that white pearlescent paper for the background so you can see the little scene I'm going to create. And just to make sure it's going to adhere nicely to my card, I put a bunch of score tape on the back. And now I pulled out a small piece of this gold garland. Then I also have a few of the purple clothespins. And so I'll use those to hold that garland in place, or at least it'll look like it's going to hold it in place. The score tape's what's going to really hold that garland down. So once I'm sure of placement, peeled up the backing on the score tape so I can push that garland in place and then attach those little clothespins again. And since those clothespins are fairly thick, I'm going to need to add a little extra dimension behind this photo frame. So I have a little thicker dimension than my regular foam tape, covering the background, and then I'll go ahead and adhere it onto my card. This is a very thick card, not one that would go through the mail very easily. I'll probably be hand delivering it or adding it to a package. So now I used the little stocking die that's included in the kit, cut it out using some of the purple pearlescent paper, And it has all of these small detail pieces that I decided I wanted to keep in the image. So when I cut it out, most of them stayed in place, and I just made sure not to pop out any of the extras. And then I put a piece of score tape on the back side just to make sure they don't pop out later. And then also adding some more of that foam tape. Like I said, super thick card. And now I'm going to add some twine. So this is a color that I just have in my craft room. It has the purple and then also the white. But I only want the purple, so I just cut a small piece and then unraveled the two pieces of purple. And now I'll just loop it around the gold garland and then tie a bow so I can hang my little stockings. Nothing fancy, just a simple little bow, and I'll just trim the ends. And then I'll peel off the back side of that foam tape. Make sure to stick those stockings down once I'm sure of the placement. And I did trim some of that twine just a little bit more. And then for a sentiment, I used some more of that purple pearlescent paper and cut out the Season's Greetings sentiment. This is a die that was included last year in one of Love From Lizi's mega packs. So always keep those on hand. This is perfect to pull out later because dies last for a long time. Now just a few finishing touches. I'm going to add some more of Nuvo's crystal drops, just 3 of them in that bottom right hand corner. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 5. Now moving on to card number 6. And I think this is my favorite card, but do let me know which card is your favorite. So I have some Burgundy cardstock, layering that on some of the gold mirror cardstock that's included in the kit. And I did use up all of the one sheet that is in the kit, but I always have some extras on hand. And then I have this white pearlescent paper. I cut it out using a scalloped rectangle die. And now I'm going to heat emboss the sentiment on the lower portion of this die cut. So I'm going to use my mini MISTI just to make sure I get it straight and a real good impression. The sentiment is by Reverse Confetti. And this is May Your Days Be Merry and Bright. So I pre-treated the paper using the anti-static powder, inked it up using some Versamark ink, and now I'm using Love From Lizi's Golden Crown embossing powder. This is a beautiful gold. I use it all the time. I'll just wipe away any little stray pieces, and then I'll get my pink heat gun to get it all heat set. So you can see that beautiful shine. And then I'll use quite a bit of adhesive on the back side of this paper, simply because I did the heat embossing and it always warps the paper just that little bit. So I'm using some score tape. Remove all of those backings and then center it on this burgundy cardstock. Trying to get it nice and straight anyway, because once it goes down, it's not moving. That score tape is super sticky. So now I cut out a circle die cut using one of the pattern papers. And this beautiful pattern paper in that deep burgundy purple color, and it has kind of a lattice design in the gold foil. So I'm wanting to make it look like an ornament. So I have the little string that it's going to hang from, used one of the gold glitter peel-offs as the string. And then I'll just pop up that circle die cut with some foam tape, making sure to get real good coverage since it is pattern paper and it's not a super thick paper, so I don't want any of the sides to sag at all. I'll adhere it to its little string. Trying to get it nice and straight. Probably when I cut out that circle, I should have made sure one of the little lines on the pattern design was maybe down the center, but it still works out fine. Using another one of the glitter bows, adhering it to the top of my ornament using a glue dot. And then just to add a little extra detail to that ornament, I'm using 3 of the gold glitter buttons. Just putting them all in a row in the center of that ornament. And then just for a finishing touch, I cut out 2 small banners using a stitch die. I have one in that purple cardstock and the other in the gold mirror. I'm going to layer them, overlap them slightly. I have the gold mirror banner cut just a little bit shorter, adhering both of those using some score tape. And there is my finished card. I just love the colors on this card. It's very elegant. So now moving on to card number 7. And I pulled out another card sketch. This is Operation Write Home sketch number 219. Another favorite sketch of mine. I use it all the time. I want to mention I do not design any of the card sketches I use. I'm so grateful for all of those great sketch designers out there and for sharing their talented work. If you are interested in any of the sketches, I do share all of that information on my coordinating blog post, and that link is in the description box below. Now for this card, I have 2 different pattern papers, and I have all of it layered in some more of the gold mirror cardstock. I'm using some navy blue cardstock for the background. You can see I have a circle cut out of that gold mirror background piece because I will be using that later. Still trying to make sure to stretch that specialty cardstock as much as possible. I did add a few of the gold glitter peel-offs to the outside edge of that thin gold strip going across the lower portion of the card, just for some extra sparkle. And now for the main image of this card, I'm using another one of the gold snowflake die cuts. I have 2 circle die cuts, one in that navy blue and then the matted layer in that gold specialty cardstock. Just gonna pop it up using some thin foam squares. And then I'll use some liquid adhesive to adhere the snowflake in place. And I wanted to use the navy blue cardstock for the background, just so that snowflake had a really good contrast. It really stood out on the card. And I decided not to use a sentiment this time, because I will just include one inside the card. But just a little finishing touch, I'm going to add 2 more of the gold glitter buttons in that left-hand corner. So there is my finished card, and that is card number 7. Now moving on to card number 8. So I'm going to build a little indoor scene. I have a couple different colors of purple cardstock. I used a stitched rectangle die to cut out both of those pieces. I'm just going to adhere them onto this darker purple cardstock layer. So this is the inside of a house. So I'm adding the little baseboard trim using one of Love From Lizi's straight peel-offs in white. So I've got the bottom portion as the carpet, and then that lighter portion is the wall. Not a color I would personally choose for the paint or carpet in my house, but I thought the colors worked out really well for this Christmas card. And now I'm taking advantage of all of these really fun dies that are included in the kit. So I use lots of the pearlescent specialty paper. So I have the little pot with the trunk coming out, and then I did 4 of the tree pieces, and I'm just building my little Christmas tree, adhering them with a little bit of score tape and then also some liquid adhesive. Want to make sure my tree doesn't topple over or pieces fall off. I have the little star, and most of the dies, those little pieces do come out, but I try to make sure most of them, they would stay in place. So I did speed up this little portion quite a bit since it did take me a while, but I'm basically just adding some score tape on the back side of most of the pieces just to keep all of them in place, and then I'll adhere them onto the tree, popping up some of them using some thin foam squares. There's all my ornaments. I have the star on the tree, and then I have the little 3-piece die set with all of the gifts. Use a small piece of the purple cardstock for that heart on the gift bag. And then I'm using the little sentiment die that has with love and the little holly leaves in that upper corner. And now I'm just inlaying the With Love sentiment cut out in gold back into this blue pearlescent paper die cut. So there's some really tiny little dots. So those were a little harder to pick up. So I am using my jewel picker tool. Has a little bit of adhesive, a little stickiness on the end. Very helpful when you're trying to pick up those tiny little pieces. And since I have the score tape on the back side, it's double-sided, so you can just place those right back into that die cut. Now just one final touch, I'm going to add the lights onto the tree using some more of Nuvo's glitter drops. So there is my little indoor scene, little Christmas tree and a few presents underneath the tree. This one was a really fun card to make. So that is card number 8. Now moving on to card number 9. The sketch is by Sketch Saturday, number 373. And overall, this is a very simple card, but I really wanted to make sure to use the Merry Christmas wooden sentiment that's included in the kit. So I'm using 2 different pattern papers. The background has a bunch of Merry Christmas holiday sentiments, and then the 2 thin strips that go on the upper portion of the card have, I don't know if it's supposed to be bubbles or maybe lights, a very tone-on-tone design. And then I'm just putting a thin peel off on the edge of each of those pieces. And this is the gold mirror peel offs. And I didn't run them all the way across the front of the card because you're not going to see that middle portion since it'll be covered up by the sentiment. So I'll go ahead and put my card front onto a card base. And there is that really sparkly sentiment. It's Merry Christmas, a little wooden piece covered in gold glitter. So I'm using some more pearlescent paper, rounded the corners, layering that on some more of this dark purple cardstock. Pop up this whole piece using some foam dimensional tape. And I'm just going to add some liquid adhesive to the back side of this wood piece. I'll make sure it stays in place. Had a couple spots where the glue kind of went around the edge, so I just wiped that away. So this is really pretty and real sparkly. So I decided to add a couple more of the glitter snowflake stickers. I'm just going to put 2 of them in that lower right-hand corner. I did have to poke through some of the little inside pieces of the stickers that didn't want to stay on that backing. And then just one finishing touch, I'm going to add just a few of the Nuvo glitter drops just around those snowflakes in the lower corner. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 9. And now moving on to my final card, this is card number 10. Using a new sketch from Sketch Saturday. This is number 585. So I have 2 different pattern papers. I have those, I think it's lights. It's like really blurred out lights for the background. And then sort of a glitter, gold glitter splatter paper for this large banner. Layering that on some more gold mirror cardstock. Put my card front onto a card base before I add anything else to this card. And also that little pattern paper stripped to the inside of the card. And so now I'm going to work on this rectangle piece that's going to be the main focus of the card. I have some more white pearlescent paper, so I'm going to do some heat embossing for the sentiment using that same stamp set from Reverse Confetti. This is Cheerful Holiday Wishes. And I'm using Love From Lizi's Golden Crown embossing powder again, since the gold just matches perfectly with this kit. And then I pulled out the teal mirror bubble peel-offs using the little diamond chain. This is the medium width. I'm just making a little frame around the whole white cardstock piece. I'll just cut the ends. I'm just going slightly inside the edge. I love just that little bit of shine the peel-offs will add. And then this nice little design using this diamond chain. So now I wanted to use the photo corners that are included in the kit since I haven't used those yet. And I thought it would work really perfectly on this rectangle piece. So I have 4 of them, and I'm just going to slide those corners right in place, those little photo corners. And they do have adhesive on the back side. And then I started to put adhesive on the rest of that paper, and then one of the photo corners slipped, which I did not notice at this point. So I'm adding some score tape because I didn't want them to slip anymore. And then when I flipped it over, I realized I can see some of that white. So now I'm going to try to fix it so you can't see any more of it. So this is me fussing with it a little bit. Then I end up having to rip some of it off because that score tape is sticky and it's not going to let anything go. But I did get it all straightened out, and you can't see the back side anyway, so nobody's going to see that I ripped that little piece. And then I was ready to adhere it to the card, and then I remembered I wanted to add some brads in the inside of these 2 wooden ornaments and then the 2 little metal stars. So I just have a piece of wax paper, since I have all this adhesive on the back side, just so it doesn't get stuck to my craft mat. So I just poked the holes for where all of the brads are going to be. And then I'll just use my brad setting tool to flatten, I don't know, is it called the tail of the brad? I like this tool since it won't ruin my fingernail trying to separate those 2 little pieces. So I have some real small brads for the stars and then a little bit larger brad for the ornaments, since those little mini brads would go right through the holes on the ornament. So I'm going to pop up this whole piece using some foam dimensional tape. Get good coverage so there isn't one side that's going to sag at all on the card. And then I'll just adhere it to that card front. Then I felt like the top of the card needed just a little more detail, so I pulled out the gold glitter peel-offs, and I'm putting 2 of them on the very top portion of the card, just using a craft knife to trim the edge. I have 2 different widths, the widest and then the medium width of the peel-offs. And I still felt like it needed just a little something extra in that upper corner. So I cut out 3 small circle die cuts using the gold mirror paper, and then I'm going to pop them up using some thin foam squares. So they kind of look like larger brads. I like just that little extra detail. It's always nice to have a little extra shine, especially on a Christmas card. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 10. And now here's just a quick recap of the 10 cards I made using Love From Lizi's special edition Christmas kit. This kit is so beautiful. I really enjoyed all of these non-traditional Christmas colors. All of the beautiful specialty cardstock included in the kit is a really nice touch. Christmas cards always need that little extra sparkle and shine. If you are interested in purchasing this kit, I do have a link in the description box. You do not need to be a subscriber to purchase this kit, but quantities are limited, so I wouldn't wait if you are interested. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.